you announced tonight the Rousey, the Ultimate Fighter. Do you any fears at all about overexposure? Obviously, she's she's only going up right now.
She just started.
Yeah.
Is that one fight? If that overexposes somebody, holy shit, we're in trouble.
So there's no, I mean, if this is not going to happen for a few months down the road. By
the time she fights again, you won't have seen her for a long time.
Was there ever a thought of an all-women's house, or was it always the plan to do males and females?
There aren't enough women to do an entire, if you do the entire Ultimate Fighter, you got to start with 30-something women. So it's a lot of women.
In the past, when the idea of Ronda Rousey coaching Ultimate Fighter was brought up, you didn't think that women participants was an option. At what point did that change?
Didn't say anything. We had been talking about it for a long time. Just didn't say anything about it.
I didn't see a release on it. Can you just go through some of the details of it?
The release will come out. The recent one went out today. Release went out tonight, didn't it?
Yeah.
Release is out. It's a full press release out with all the details.
I missed it. Okay, so it's half women.
Half women. It's 135 pounds, men and women.
So you'll have how many women to start? I know it's in the release. I'll ask a follow-up question.
Do that. I'll fuck it up right now.
Dana, tonight was that not a little sad with Nick? What happened tonight? He retires. He doesn't want to retire. I mean, what's going on?
Nick Diaz has been in the game for a long time. If you saw his paycheck tonight, you wouldn't feel too sad for him. You know what I mean? That's what. At the end of the day, Nick has been in the sport forever. He wanted a shot at the title. He got a shot at the title, and he got paid a lot of money for it. What's sad is he better go pay his taxes as soon as he gets that check. That's no shit. That will be sad. If somebody doesn't take care of that kid and get him set straight and, came out here publicly tonight and said he's never paid tax in his life, holy shit. I mean, that's sad. When you want to talk about sad, that's sad. Somebody better handle that with this check and make sure that kid doesn't end up with nothing.
I mean, you said you're not these guys' dads, but does somebody need to pull this guy aside and give him some advice?
Yeah, who is it? There's a guy that I've been talking to for a while here who's his lawyer. He's Nate and Nick's lawyer. Guy seems like a decent guy who's looking out for them. I'll probably give this guy a call and tell him that Nick said he's never paid tax in his life. And you might want to start working on that fucking Sunday morning, not Monday morning.
And do you see a future for him? Is there a future for him in the company, in your company?
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from here on out. It's like I said, it's not like I don't know what to expect being in business with Nick Diaz. And when he does show up, he does fight.
Did you hear there was something that went on in the back involving Nate Diaz and Mike Ricci tonight after Ricci's fight? Apparently he was getting... apparently Ricci said it was just all on Nate Diaz. He didn't really respond, but he was kind of getting in his face after his fight.
I didn't hear about it. And I would have heard about it if it was something real bad.
I don't think it escalated to anything. It was more just words from Nate.
Yeah. And what I do think happened tonight with the whole hand wrap thing, it's one of the oldest tricks in the book in boxing. It's part of the whole plan to mess with GSP.
What did you think of Diaz's performance tonight, or do you think GSP just took him out of his...
GSP fought his fight. People are going to say whatever they're going to say about GSP because people love to hate on his performances. He had a great performance tonight against a kid who can knock you out. And look at what Nick Diaz has done to all other opponents that he fights. I mean, even if it's, look at the Gomi fight. Look at the Paul Daly fight. I mean, look at some of the fights that this kid's fought and what he's done to people. George St-Pierre stood up with him. They stood and they traded, and George got a lot the better of the deal most of the time. He took it to the ground when he wanted to. He controlled him on the ground. Nick's got great jiu-jitsu, and George stayed out of submissions. George went in there and did his work. I don't know how hard he hit him, but he was hitting him. He was scoring points. So
Hendricks looks great, so you see that fight as being...
That fight was unbelievable. That fight was so... That's what I'm talking about when you talk about mixed martial arts. And again, Nick started to allude to pride and how, they'd make it exciting and everything else. You didn't have to make that fight exciting. You didn't need yellow cards. You didn't need to say action. There, when you have two well-rounded mixed martial artists in there, meaning a guy like Carlos Condit who can wrestle. And he says his wrestling isn't up to par. His wrestling looked phenomenal tonight. Every time Johnny Hendricks got him down, that kid got backed up. Either got it backed up to his feet or was landing from the bottom.
When you hear Nick say that he wants a rematch with George, then he says he's a better matchup for Anderson Silva than George is because George has no punching power. Are you taking any of this into consideration at all, or is this just stuff he's spewing out and you'll look at it further down?
No.
Did Ronda have to win that fight to make the tough coaches thing happen? Was that something you guys decided after the Ronda fight that, hey, we can do this now, we can have Ronda be a tough coach? And
Yeah. Obviously, her winning the fight was a big deal. Yeah, definitely.
so that came to fruition after that fight. That wasn't something you guys were thinking about.
There were a lot of things going into that fight, you know, that determined whether she, you know.
Like theoretical stuff, like if she wins, we could do this.
Maybe it could happen.
Yeah.
And then after that fight happened, obviously.
Is that season going to still be on FX? I think that's something that people maybe are.
That's all still a work in progress. I don't know what's going to happen.
To Fox Sports One,
I don't know.
still up in the air.
Yeah, I honestly don't know that. I won't be the one to make that decision.
What made you decide that you had enough women, and they'll need to try out, right? You'll go through like a standard tryout process.
We're doing tryouts. Yeah, we'll do tryouts in Vegas the Monday after the finale.
And how did you decide that we'll have enough women come out and try out for this thing, so we'll have some talent on the
We
show?
already know we have enough women to do it. And then when we do the tryouts, every time we do tryouts, people pop up that you never even knew about.
Have some girls in mind, it sounds like.
Just wondering what your thoughts were on Jordan Main's debut tonight against Dan Miller. Obviously,
Unbelievable, man. Kid looked great. Yeah, I like how hungry these Strikeforce guys are, man. It's fun.
any idea what might be next for him at this point? Or
Never do a fight, no.
How about Rory McDonald? Because I saw he was in attendance, and obviously he's also in the plans for the division as
I
well.
don't know where he's at physically.
Another Strikeforce guy, Bobby Volker. He had a very competitive fight with Patrick Cote. A lot of media members scored that fight for Bobby Volker. How did you score the fight?
I agree with you. I think he won the fight.
Are you going to pay him a win bonus?
Probably not, no. But I think he won the fight.
Revisit the Hunt JDS situation. If Hunt were to win and knock JDS out, probably gets a title shot. You said the other day. What does that do for Fabricio Verdum, who I think maybe you guys also said, yeah, if he wins that fight with Big Nog, he could get a title shot.
That's a good question.
To throw a wrench into the works there, but just
Throw a wrench. All these things depend on timing. Who's ready? Whatever happens, we'll see how it all plays out.
How is the pay-per-view trending?
Tonight, pretty good.
Typical GSP fight, or more or less?
It's trending with Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think you get over 1 million?
Who knows? That'd be awesome. We'll see what happens.
Do you think it could be the best of the year? Like the calendar year since
hope not.
dating back?
Is there anything more you can elaborate on that little bomb you dropped the other day about the Vince McMahon and the offer that was made? I mean, was it a serious offer? Was it Vince almost like would you concrete?
Vince and I were talking. You never know what's serious and what's not with Vince. But Vince literally said to me, we could do a match in the WWE, or we could fight in the UFC, or we could fight in the WWE. That's basically what he said.
3 years ago, when you guys did the George St-Pierre Dan Hardy fight, it was the night before WrestleMania, and a lot of people feel it took a bit of a bite out of WrestleMania that year. Since that time, you've never done that night before WWE's biggest show of the year. Is that coincidence? Is it because you and Vince have talked? Is there anything to that?
No, it's total coincidence. It's our dates land whenever we map them out, wherever we think it works best. We don't put them in place. Like when we land on those nights, the free fight nights land on a boxing event, and people think that it's just those are the dates that ended up getting picked. You pick your dates early in the year and you go through them, and boxing starts picking their dates and we land on the same date. It's never us trying to do it or trying to go the night before WWE. You actually try to stay away from pay-per-views because you want as many pay-per-view buyers as you can to want to buy it. You don't want them to pick and choose. You want them to have enough money to do yours and possibly do somebody else's later.
So Dan, when you took that call with Vince, what was your reaction?
I said, "You're crazy. Are you crazy?" I laughed and said, "You crazy?"
Did you think he was joking?
No. He's a competitive maniac.
Was it a personal thing? Like, do you think he doesn't like you? Does he?
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he wanted to kick my ass on national television. I don't know.
Did it come after something had happened?
No, it didn't come out like that. That's not how it was. But you never know with him. When you talk to him, when you sit down and talk to him, You don't know what the fuck. You don't know where you're at or where you stand. I've had a few meetings with him.
When's the last time you talked to him?
A year ago?
Do you think, considering this became such a news story, do you think he will try to revisit it?
I don't know what he'll do.
Would you ever consider it under any circumstances?
Dude, I can barely get on a fucking treadmill right now.
UFC India, when's that unfolding? I think you said last time around spring 2013, and I know Sean Shelby just came back from India. Is that going to be happening anytime soon?
Is what going to be happening?
The first, yeah, or like the
we're working over there. You know, we've already set up shop and we've already started to invest in that market. We're working on it.
Have you picked the city yet to maybe hold an event?
UFC releasing a lot of fighters recently. Are you releasing fighters basically on like performance based? And with that being said, where does Nate Marquardt stand right now?
We haven't been releasing any more fighters than we ever have. I mean, we're releasing the same amount of fighters after a show as we always have. You know, a couple were just a little more high profile. That's it. And Nate Marquardt, I don't know. We'll see.
What did you think of his performance tonight? I mean, he's had 2 tough losses here now.
It was quick, yeah. It was a quick one. I think Ellenberger looked awesome. The thing that was the most impressive about Ellenberger is he didn't wrestle. He went in there and stood up with him. Pretty impressive.
Where does Jake sit? I mean, is he going to fight a guy like Rory McDonald, Damian Maia next? Something like that?
That's a good question. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know.
Just a question about the Tough House for the women and men season. Obviously, when you have men, women, alcohol, is this going to be like a Big Brother kind of thing where people, fighters might be, having relations? Is that cool? Does that make that for better TV maybe?
I have no idea what's going to happen. We've never done it before, and I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Have cameras everywhere in the house kind of thing?
Oh yeah, there's cameras everywhere. You can't hide from anything on The Ultimate Fighter. There's cameras in the bathroom. You can't hide. I mean, you pretty much give up, all your freedom when you're in that house.
How anxious are you to possibly get a women's fight here in Canada at some point? I know that division still has to open up a little bit, but obviously a lot of interest in the women's fights, Canada being a big market. Any possibility of that in the near future?
Women's fights everywhere, just like men's fights, you know what I mean? We want to do it everywhere. It's not that I'm excited to bring it anywhere, more excited to bring it anywhere than anywhere else, but we're going to be doing women's fights everywhere.
Right now, Hendricks is the #1 contender for GSP, but let's say his hand feedback comes back positive tomorrow and actually is broken and he's out for an extended amount of time. What's the plan? Do you have an idea?
No, I don't even want to think about that. He said no matter what, he's fighting.
One hand.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a tough guy. And it doesn't look like his hand is broken. His knuckles right here look swollen. Like these knuckles are swollen. He said he got caught in the cage on a takedown.
How hard is it to resist the lure of having George fight back here again in Montreal the next time he defends? I mean, I know
I was just telling Lorenzo, man, I said, you know what we got to do? We got to bring him back to Vegas. He hasn't been out of, Canada in a while, so.
When was his Las Vegas? The BJ fight? No, I guess UFC 100, yeah, Thiago, yeah. So it's been a while. UFC 100.
Time to bring him back to Vegas, though. Let George fight somewhere else,
But the fact you had 2 such successful gates here in a 4-month time period, do you feel that Montreal could be, like Tom said before, March is going to be their tentpole event in Montreal? Is there a chance, maybe Montreal's a 2 event a year kind of city?
We come here. Even when we brought, like I told you, we did 2 Brazilians headlined up here, and it was fantastic. Canada's awesome. Montreal's a destination. It's a fun city to come to. I don't think anybody comes here and doesn't have a good time, even in the winter. Even though it's cold as hell, still a great place. Great restaurants, great hotels, great malls. I mean, there's everything here. It's a destination.
Speaking of Vegas, Fan Expo in July, is that a done deal?
I think so.
Just not announced yet, but it looks, I don't know. I haven't heard it be announced, but I mean, it's been a regular thing, so it's just everybody assumes.
I'm almost positive that yes, there will be a Fan Expo.
Dana, to your right. This card was a real showcase of the welterweights. There was a lot of good prelims that were welterweights as well? Was there ever a thought of perhaps doing an all welterweight main card, like they're the all heavyweight card? And is that something you guys are going to look at doing more in the future?
No, we've never thought about an all welterweight card. But I know once this thing ended up becoming like a welterweight tournament, Silva threw some more welterweights on there.
Are you guys planning on more types of cards like UFC 146?
If they lined up that way, you know, everybody's got to be available, high ranked, and healthy at the same time.
And staying with welterweights, have you spoken to Tarek Safadine lately, and are there plans for his UFC debut yet?
Yeah, we offered him a fight. Recently and had to turn it down. Yeah.
Rick Story, he's the only guy who's ever defeated Johnny Hendricks in MMA. He picked up a huge knockout win. Where do you see Rick in the welterweight division?
Yeah, tonight was a good win for him, man. He looked good. You know, get him back in the mix again.
Is he top 10, top 15 kind of guy, would you say?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
David, your thoughts on TJ Dillashaw on the prelims tonight? Yeah.
The prelims were really good. Yeah, they were great fights. It was a good night, man. And you know what? A lot of people were giving the Camozzi fight a lot of shit. I thought the Camozzi fight was a good fight. Nick Ring's tough, man. There was no wrestling. There was no clinching bullshit. Those two stood in front of each other and hit each other with big shots. Nick Ring's a tough guy. He took some big shots. Camozzi's looked awesome in his last however many fights, 4 fights or whatever it was. And those two went toe-to-toe. It was a good fight. People were booing and people were talking shit on Twitter. I had to get off Twitter during that fight because I started fucking fighting with people. You know, I started saying some bad shit. I had to get off Twitter. But I thought it was a tough fight.
In the lead up to this Anderson Silva Chris Weidman fight, Chris has said, "I'm going to beat him and I'll give him a rematch in November." Is there an automatic rematch clause in that fight?
Nope. But if he wants to give him a rematch, if he beats him, I'm sure people would want to see it.
What do you do next with Darren Elkins? He's got 5 in a row. And at featherweight, nobody else has 5 in a row. The first 4 were decisions, and they were what they were. But he got a stoppage tonight, even if people are going to argue.
Who did you say?
Darren Elkins.
Who?
Elkins
Yeah.
at featherweight.
Yeah.
I mean, does he get a top 10 guy now? I mean,
I don't know. Again, we'll see.
Staying in that division too, you guys announced the Lamas Korean Zombie fight.
Yep.
Lamas was a guy who has been in a position like Hendricks where he thought he was going to be the next guy for the title.
It's tough, man. You know, it happens a lot. So was Pettis. You know, some guys get trapped in this spot. Sometimes it happens.
I mean, those guys I think feel like they get trapped in a spot where somebody with more attention on them talks and gets in your ear and texts you and says, "Hey, I want to drop down and get this fight," and then guys get left over.
I asked a bunch of fans the other day when I talked to them, does anybody here feel that Pettis, who is getting the 155-pound title shot, doesn't deserve the 145 pound? And everybody's like, fucking no way, he deserves it, and everybody wants to see it. And, you know, it just, you know, it's like Johnny Hendricks tonight. You know, Johnny Hendricks wanted that fight. That fight absolutely should have happened. The Condit Hendricks fight should have happened. It happened tonight, and you can't fucking deny the kid now that he deserves that #1 spot.
So you guys feel probably the same way about the Lamas Zombie fight.
Yeah.
It's of the consequences that you guys get
there's
another
no
good
way
fight.
There's no way that after the fights have been like, whoa, Lamas absolutely deserves this. You know, he fights the Zombie. That's a high-profile fight that people are excited about, and we'll see what happens.
How do you feel when?
And at the end of the day, if you truly believe you're the best in that division, you're going to win the title and hold it for a while, who gives a shit? What do you care about? You're going to end up fighting all these guys anyway. Sure. So whether it's now, 2 fights from now, or whatever it is.
How do you feel when you hear somebody like GSP say, "Don't sleep on Chris Weidman"? Does it make you more excited for the potential fight with
I agree.
Anderson?
You know, trust me, I talked to Chris Weidman myself. The guy looks me right in the eye and says, "I'm telling you, I apologize that I'm going to fuck up all your super fights, but I'm going to win this fight." Because if you take Anderson Silva out of the mix, the super fights are all gone. You know what I mean? He says, "I'm going to fuck up all your super fights, and I'm going to be your next champion. But what I will do for you is I'll give him an immediate rematch in Madison Square Garden as soon as he loses." It's verbatim what the guy said to me.
And you shot down Ben Henderson's chances at 170 because he's got more contenders in the 155-pound division.
You know, Ben Henderson coming up right now is in a super fight. You know what I mean? Ben Henderson starts dominating that a lot of people think Frankie Edgar won a couple of those fights. You know, he won convincingly over Nate Diaz. He's got some work to do before he starts screaming for a super fight. Everybody wants to scream super fight for George St-Pierre because what happens when you fight George St-Pierre is you get fucking paid. You get paid when you fight this kid. Big money. There's no fight out there that's bigger money than George St-Pierre unless you do Anderson St-Pierre or Anderson Bones Jones. Those are the only fights out there that are bigger than fighting George St-Pierre. So everybody, I mean, you're going to have fucking 35-pounders calling him out pretty soon.
And do you like that when fighters from different divisions start calling each other out and saying, I want to go up, I want to go down?
It depends on if it's the right time to do it. I liked when Pettis did it. Depends.
You believe you did it the right way by texting you like that?
You can do it any way you want. You can fax me, text me, fucking, you know. I don't care how you do it. It's just whether it makes sense or not. That fight made sense.
Diaz, talking about retirement. This is his second fight in a row. He's talking about retirement. As long as you've been around the fight game, do you ever remember a fighter who's talked about retirement this much and come back with the same fire that they used to have?
I've never heard a guy say any of the shit like Nick Diaz does. I mean, I've never, not even close to, to publicly admit on television that you never paid taxes in your life. That's something you don't tell anybody and hope they never come fucking find you. But they will.
H&R Block commercials.
Huh?
They'll get in one of those H&R Block commercials.
He better. He better handle that shit fucking tomorrow. If there's one organization out there that does not fuck around, it is the IRS. Those are the last guys on earth you want. I'd rather have fucking ninjas after me than fucking IRS, man. I'd rather have the mob after me than fucking IRS. They don't play.
Obviously, 161, the card in Winnipeg is shaping up to be quite a card. Is it important for you guys to have a really good card when you go into a new location? I mean, anytime you guys put fights on, people are going to get excited, but to have a card like that, the way that one's looking, is it important to have a really strong card like that in a new location?
In Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think any time that we do, we always go in and deliver. The one time that we never did that was in Calgary. The Calgary card was the biggest nightmare ever. Every fight on the card got changed, and I said, hey, we'll come here. These fighters will deliver, and they didn't that night. So, yeah, we want to go in and have a great card in Winnipeg, and we want to go back and deliver for Calgary too.
On that subject, you only went to Boston once. Is it because you don't have enough local fighters to draw a big card there, or was it just not a profitable market?
No, we'll be going back to Boston again this year. We'll do Boston this year. You from Boston?
No.
Oh. What do you care?
I'm just curious.
Yeah?
You only went once. Time frame? Do you have a time frame in mind?
Huh?
You have a time frame in mind?
Yeah.
Fall? I know that just makes it.
I said it recently. It's sooner than people think. I just can't announce it right now. We're working on it.
It's no fun for us.
I know. I'm no fun.
Matt Hughes was saying this week that he was planning to be sent down to South Dakota, but then ended up being coming up here to Montreal. What's the latest on South Dakota?
I have no idea. No clue.
Speaking of Hughes, in his role, would it be on him to, for example, get in touch with Nick Diaz about missing workouts and say, hey, man, maybe you should have gone to this? Or would it be on you guys to tell Matt, hey, man, maybe can you give Nick Diaz a call and talk to him?
Here's what needs to happen. Matt Hughes is going to be, more involved in the UFC and start to create relationships with some of these guys. And the way that this thing works is Matt Hughes won't be able to create relationships with every guy, but there's some guys he'll become real close to. I have relationships with a lot of guys, and there's some guys that I don't. And Lorenzo has relationships with guys, and Joe Silva has. So there's a lot of people that are working with a lot of different personalities and different things. So it's never really on one guy's shoulders,
But if he wanted to, he'd be able to get in touch with you and say, hey, man, I really feel like I should reach out to this person. And
he could reach out to Nick, and he could reach out to anybody he wants to and try to create a relationship and say, hey, just calling, just saying, hey, this, that, and they don't have to listen to him. They could listen to him, but it's at the end of the day, it's really all about relationships. There's got to be somebody. If you want to fight in this company, there's got to be somebody that you can talk to. Sure. If it's not me, and it doesn't have to be me all the time, You know, I don't mesh with everybody, and Lorenzo can handle it, and you know, it actually works pretty smooth.
Dana, obviously you're going to Winnipeg, excited about a possible return to Calgary. Any chance of Ottawa at some point in the future? Fans there?
You have to ask Tom, right, that.
Dana, question. He mentioned possible fight between Rory McDonald and Jordan Meehan. They actually fought when they were 16 years old. Rory won by rear naked choke. What do you think about this next wave of these mixed martial artists, young kids coming up, learning all the disciplines, especially these Canadian guys, because it seems like all these great welterweights are coming out of Canada.
Yeah, I love it, man. And that's what I've been saying for years, that it's gonna, you know, as these guys grow up doing mixed martial arts and not just one style, it's just gonna keep getting better and better. The level's just gonna keep going higher and higher. I like the fight you saw with Condit and Hendricks tonight. I mean, that was sick. I mean, that fight was so sick. It was so good.
One more question, Dana. Your next event in Sweden, I believe. Alexander Gustafsson is the headline of the card. A lot of people were critical of Leona Machida's performance against Dan Henderson. Is it possible that Gustafsson, with another win, that'd be 6 in a row, could he leapfrog Machida for that title shot against the winner of Jones?
He beat Dan Henderson, man. You know what I mean? He beat him. Whether Dan wants to think that the fight, you know, however it was done or whatever, he ran for me. Again, you got to be able to cut the guy off and stop him and finish him. If a guy moves too much and too elusive, you got to be able to stop him, you know, cut him off and stop him. Dan couldn't do that. Dan lost the fight. Done with me?
That's enough.
I'm going home.
Thanks,
Good night,
Dana.
guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, brother. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.